Hello, Chris Mystery Cleaning Windows on the File Coast. Welcome back to the channel once again, where we discuss all things self-employed and in particular window cleaning, which is my niche. So I wanted to talk to you today about the pros and cons, if you like, of becoming self-employed versus being employed. First one is work-life balance. I find that being self-employed is fantastic because it allows you to sort of dictate your own workload. You pick when you work, you pick when you rest, and ultimately you have the freedom to into that respect please yourself. The second pro is that ultimately you have the choice, if you like, to do what you are passionate about. Okay, if you want to change direction, you can change direction. It's not an issue. You can work for a multitude of different clients, companies, etc., providing a variety of services. Whereas perhaps if you are an employee, you could be pigeonholed into a certain sort of job, which initially can become it can be fantastic, but then may become sort of boring over time as repetition kicks in, etc. The third pro I find is that you are taxed differently than someone who is employed. Someone who is employed will get their tax paid by their employer. That sounds brilliant, but the reality is that an employee cannot claim back things like clothing, things like tools, things like stationery, meals out for networking, etc. Okay, sort of thing. And the idea behind that is I believe, rightly or wrongly, whatever your beliefs are politically, I'm not really interested to get into that kind of scrap, if you like. That's for another video and definitely another channel. But yeah, the way I see it is the government is rewarding people who start businesses, because ultimately a small proportion of those people that start businesses will go on to be job creators and create wealth, etc., and jobs and opportunities, which then takes the burden off the state. So I think it's only right that business owners that play by the rules and that actually take staff on and become job creators benefit from sort of tax breaks, etc. Okay, so now the cons, the drawbacks. Okay, you are ultimately 100% responsible for when things go right, but more importantly, you are 100% liable when things go wrong. Okay, if things work well, you're rewarded. If things work badly, you are punished, perhaps to a more extreme degree than someone who is an employee. Okay, so the idea that yes, well, I have all this freedom and I can take a day off whenever I want. Well, you can, but if it adversely affects your business, then ultimately you can become a cropper. People who are not particularly sort of proactive and sort of take a a sort of back seat, if you like, tend to be the ones that sort of that suffer, to be honest with you. Another drawback with being self-employed is that to some degree there are some things that are out of all of our control, but these can adversely affect business owners arguably more than employees. I'll give you a typical example. COVID-19 that has hit, those who are limited company directors, etc., were largely left out massively by government provision, etc. The provision was set towards keeping employees well looked after, which is fantastic, and it's good to see that the government sort of, to some degree, put its arm around employees and made sure that people could put food on the table and provide for their families. The downside is that limited company directors were to a large degree left out of any provision made by the government. So ultimately, you are Johnny on the spot. You're expected to fend for yourself in shall we say, in an economic downturn. You are expected to foot the bill and ultimately look after yourself. Another drawback to being self-employed potentially is certainly from some of our American subscribers, if you like, over the pond. Those who are self-employed tend to get very little in the way of medical care in the United States and in the United Kingdom, where perhaps there is a little bit of state funding, if you like, or £94 per week, which is nothing in terms of sick pay. You don't get sick pay and you don't get generally sort of any form of benefits, etc. Things like pensions, which are now being looked at extensively in the United Kingdom, sick pay, which again, albeit a very small paltry amount, is still available to those who are on the sick, and for certain lucky employees, if you like, their company will pay them normal wage for sick pay. You get none of that being self-employed, and as someone who's self-employed, you are not entitled to be sick and expect to get paid for it. The final drawback of being self-employed is perhaps something that few people can understand, is that heavy wears the crown. Okay, and what I mean by that is that only business owners really truly understand the problems that business owners face. You can have an appreciation for it as an employee. However, for the vast majority of people, a lot of people can't really understand the stresses and strains at times that can fall on business owners. Okay, when things go well, it's fantastic. When things don't go so well, then obviously the stress comes in because people are ultimately relying on you to provide jobs, etc., to provide money, wages, etc. The people that work for you look to you for guidance. They look to you to sort their problems out for the business. They don't want to hear that there are problems. They only want to know when they are when they're getting paid, etc. And to that degree, it can be a bit of a challenge being self-employed. But for those with the right mindset, it is nothing that can't be overcome. So there you have it, folks. That's my take on the pros and cons, if you like, of becoming a self-employed business owner. If you like what we do on the channel here, please give it a like, a share, and a subscribe. And I'll hopefully see you all on the channel very, very soon. All the very best, peeps. Keep on keeping.